yawning is a fantastic breathing technique that we do naturally. And when we yawn, we actually become more relaxed. Why do we become more relaxed? We actually tense up in the beginning of yawn, don't we? When you yawn, when you inhale, you contract. You develop more tension. The shoulders rise, trapezius tense up, the muscles tend to tense up, and then when you exhale, that's when you release tension and become more relaxed. Just like we talked about doing more tension in order to get less tension. Obviously, when you become more relaxed, you may also feel like it's time to snooze because you may be so used to going to bed or to sleep when you're relaxed that immediately becoming relaxed triggers the idea that it's about being tired and needed to sleep. When in fact, you can learn how to function in your daily life when you're relaxed. And that's a wonderful way to be. As a matter of fact, our entire harmonious culture movement is based on using relaxation when most people use tension. Let's play a little bit with the meditation practice I was just talking about. Get rid of my shoes. So, when people sit and meditate, they often tend to sit in rather uncomfortable or contrived sitting positions. Either half lotus or full lotus, or just cross-legged. Basically, either one of them is rather unstable. By unstable, I mean your sacrum is tilted backwards. When your sacrum is tilted backwards, as we talked about how it's the foundation of the spine. The spine obviously also tilts backwards, at least lumbar spine. Then you have to compensate for the tilt by tilting the thoracic spine in opposite direction, forward. Basically creating a slouch position. If you look at me in profile, it looks like this. See how there is no lumbar curve. If there is no lumbar curve, it means you are out of alignment. Of course, it will also create tension in muscles of hip flexors because they keep you from falling over backwards. If I don't hold tension in hip flexors, something really funny is going to happen. This. Those hip flexors constantly working, the muscles of the back and the back of the neck constantly working because they support the spine that is out of alignment, and they're never strong as bones. They burn energy, and they require signals of contraction from central nervous system. Sitting like this obviously is also crooked because one hip is higher than the other. It's a popular Thai way of sitting, but it's very unstable. I mean, if you relax, you will immediately fall over. So, what do we do to sit so that we don't fall over? That's right. There is this interesting position. In Japanese, it's referred to as seiza. So, people practicing Zazen often sit in this position. In Tibetan Buddhism, it's often referred to as the Vajra position for sitting. It's less comfortable for those people who have tension in the shin muscles. Basically, it is uncomfortable because it stretches your shins. If they're tense, obviously they will be unhappy.
So stretch tension there is tension in here?
Right. Yeah, this is a shins muscle, right?
Yes, the tibia.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, if there's too much tension there, it will cause shin splints.
I guess.
What is it?
Look at that lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess so. My
Only
question,
1 foot or both?
both foot. So my question is, if I do this,
Yeah.
would I get more problems? Is something clogged up or no?
Well, I wouldn't sit on a hardwood floor, maybe carpet is more comfortable. And often people use either pillows or cushions to sit on. So it also elevates the buttocks above the floor a little bit higher, which makes it a little bit more comfortable.
So, what about with you right there?
Yeah.
So no injury. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, if you are suffering from sitting in this position, you can also use a pillow. How do you use a pillow? Well, just like this. What I'm doing is I'm letting my toes hang slightly off the edge of the pillow. So if you need a pillow, feel free to help yourself.
I'll do that. I'm sorry, look like you interrupted you when you had a question.
It's okay. Like it's good. It's just like when you do the regular meditation, you are encouraged lots of times to raise your butt in the air. Is that's just an attempt to bring that pelvis forward, or that sacrum and the...
Not too much forward. So we don't want to tilt it too much forward because then you will be basically struggling against gravity, tilted in the opposite direction. So we want to find some kind of
sit
sweet
like this. You wear bolsters or whatever you sit on, and so the knees are lower than.
Well, your knees are still higher than your hips. If you manage to bolster your butt so that your hips are higher than your knees, you may be okay. Yeah, totally. And for those people who practice sitting like this, basically it becomes very comfortable. I guess practice makes perfect. I remember that initially I had some numbness in my feet after sitting for a while, maybe more than 15-20 minutes. And then I realized I don't really need to sit for that long. I don't need to sit for a whole hour or even for 40 minutes, because most people spend time in meditation practice, actually not in a meditation state. Most people have a hard time getting into meditation state. And so they spend most of their time sitting, actually not meditating. They're trying to get into the meditation state, but most likely failing or taking a tremendous amount of time to actually achieve that. So what we do instead is we learn how to get into meditation quickly. So we don't have to spend hours meditating. We can spend just 5-10 minutes. When you do this for a short period of time, you can do it more than once a day. Because you're not spending too much time out in your day dedicated to meditation. So if you do it 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 10 minutes some other time, you do this incrementally. And actually, it allows the meditative state of mind to permeate your daily life, which means you actually live your life in a more harmonious manner. Now, it will particularly work well if you also develop harmonious culture movement. By that I mean this: if we have a disharmonious, meaning jerky, linear, start-stop culture of movement, where we struggling against gravity all the time, where we're using the muscles when we actually could relax, and we are isolating one part of the body to move regardless of the other parts of the body. It basically creates a disharmonious way of being, because you are the way you move. And so if you get into a harmonious state of consciousness through meditation, you may enjoy a harmonious way of being until you get off the cushion. And then as soon as you start moving disharmoniously, you will default to a disharmonious way of being again. Well, that defeats the purpose, doesn't it? What we're looking for is how to live more harmoniously throughout our day. And for that purpose, we meditate more than once, but in short increments. Just 5 minutes, 10 minutes maximum. But do this several times a day. And when we stop the practice of meditation and start moving, we move using harmonious culture movement. We'll dive right into it after our lunch. But just to give you a little bit of an idea about the practice of meditation that we study, some of you already are more familiar with it than others. You can actually instigate a very simple meditation experience by just simply yawning. Because when you yawn, there's a moment in time when your mind can't think. And when you experience that, you enter a deep meditative state of consciousness. Unfortunately, for most people, they don't pay attention to that, so they don't take advantage of the fact that they enter the meditative state of consciousness. They don't expand it beyond a split second. If we pay attention to it, we can actually keep it that way. Basically, get into that state of consciousness where you don't think, and you maintain it for maybe just a few more seconds. With practice, you'll be able to do it for maybe a dozen seconds, maybe several dozen seconds, maybe even a minute. Well, that's already an accomplishment. To enter a meditative state and stay in it for a minute or more, that is an excellent achievement to start with. And then, of course, we can expand it beyond a minute. And that's basically what we do in our practice. Sounds really simple, doesn't it? Not always easy to experience, but it's simple. That's very important, because if it's too complex, it means it's wrong. Most likely, you're just doing something contrived. So, how do we achieve the ability to instigate yawning at will? By doing something that many meditation practitioners know about, bringing the tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth. You literally complete the circulation of energy through Dumai and Renmai, the governing and conception vessels. And if you keep your tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth, but open the jaw and breathe through the nose instead of the mouth, even though the mouth may be slightly open, something really interesting is going to happen. After just a few breaths, you will feel like yawning.
Cool like that.
And when that happens, of course, forget about the tip of the tongue and the roof of the mouth. You won't be able to keep it there. And you just simply yawn away. You also may experience a natural mantra. Mantra ha. If you vocalize it, it may sound in a variety of different ways. And in the advanced Jidao program, we actually work with the mantra ha, and when we get to study the element air, we really dive deep into it because it allows you to actually tune into different frequencies of energy. It's like in some Qigong styles, for example, Mantak Chia teaches 6 healing sounds, and several other teachers do that. Well, they use different mantras for each organ or for each energy center. In Qidao, we use mantra ha for all of them, but in a variety of tonalities. And so you will see how it will actually have very direct correspondence to each and every one of the holding patterns. For now, we just let it erupt. If it happens naturally, just let it unfold spontaneously. What we're going to do now is simply experiment with how long it's going to take you to initiate yawn. And when you do yawn and catch yourself at a moment of no thought, just allow that moment to expand a little bit further. No worries, you will still start thinking sooner or later. So you're not going to just lose the ability to think, but you will be able to enjoy that moment of no thought, which a lot of meditators would kill for. So let's see how we can just simply play with the ability to initiate yawning as well. Your eyes starting to water. It's just simple indication that you're entering an altered state of consciousness.
And the mouth too.
Again?
And the mouth too.
Yeah, more saliva.
More saliva.
Sure. Also interesting how one hand is this way, the other hand is that way.
So just put it that way. Then.
So let's test. simple test. I wonder if there's any difference in sitting this way, hands down, versus some other way. Yeah. For example, with the hands down, let's see how you feel if I push here. Okay, let's remember the feeling. Now would you put your hands the other way? Very nice. I'm not pushing any lighter, am I? And you're not going anywhere. Now go ahead and slowly turn your palms. Interesting, isn't it? Now the hands this way also will make it. Yeah, okay, so let's just keep them, for example, this way. And just feel this. Okay. Would you turn the palms down? Interesting, isn't it? Would you put them like halfway this way? Yeah. Still pretty unstable. How about a little bit more this way? A little bit more stable. A little bit more this way. A lot more stable. A little bit more that way. Interesting, isn't it? Just simple alignment of the hands makes a huge difference on stability. It's not just when you stand, but also when you sit. What does it do for your consciousness? Well, we talk about how being open or being more available is associated with the position of the hands, palms forward. Now, would you want to be more open or more closed when you meditate?
I would think open.
So why would we do this to our hands then? Because it also makes us weaker in addition to being more closed. This versus that. Even when you sit with legs crossed like this, you can still be you can still be relatively stable here. And now would you turn your palms down and feel this? Yeah, no stability. And yeah, it doesn't matter even if you hold your knees, yeah, it doesn't matter. No stability. And if you turn your palms up. Totally different feeling, isn't it? Now slowly turn your palms down. See, there's like a certain point of no return. So somewhere with in alignment with the vertical position of the hands. So you just kind of turn the switch off. The power suddenly goes off. Interesting, huh? We learn how to develop the ability to pay attention to all these little details. When we develop this ability, we constantly look for ways to improve it. It's like in Dzogchen, in the Tibetan tradition of great perfection. They say, everything is perfect already, with lots of room for improvement. So, it's already perfect. Let's accept it the way it is. It's just perfect for now. Does it have any room for improvement? Yes, everything and everyone does. So we don't forget about that ability to improve upon things, even though we recognize the perfection of everything and everyone, including yourself. It's kind of an interesting twist of the mind, if you will, a mental maneuver of consciousness. But once you really get it, it becomes a new lifestyle. The lifestyle of a person who is constantly on the road of improvement. Even though you fully accept yourself each and every moment in time along the way. As a matter of fact, if you don't accept yourself, you will have a hard time paying attention to yourself. Because acceptance is a prerequisite for being able to pay attention. Like if you don't accept somebody, you basically have some judgments or some resentment. That means paying attention to the person is going to be exceedingly difficult. But when you accept the person, now you can pay attention to them. And they most likely will actually start improving. So if we want to improve somebody, we don't want to just judge them, put label on them, say that the person is bad. We actually develop ability to accept them the way they are, and then recognize that there is lots of room for improvement. Well, we start with ourselves. We are the person, first of all, who working on improvement. We have to accept ourselves and then start experimenting. Well, how can I capitalize on my strengths and strengthen my weaknesses? Makes sense, right? Cool. Let's do a little bit more meditation. Once again, that same Sesa position, or Vajra, if we use the Sanskrit term. And now, I'm going to add one more very important detail. What happens with your mind after you experience that pause in your thought process? You will start thinking again, and pretty much any thought that will occur at that time will be a form of a daydream. Because you'll be either thinking about something that happened in the past, which obviously is a daydream, or you'll be thinking about something that may happen in the future, which is another speculation or projection, another form of a daydream. Now, what happens when we daydream? We give ourselves a reminder that it's a daydream. We literally become lucid in the daydream by telling ourselves that we're dreaming. So that's going to be the next step in this meditation practice. When you allow yourself to experience yawning and enter that pause between thoughts, whenever the thoughts occur again, just remind yourself that those thoughts are dreams, and thereby become lucid within your dream, in this case the daydream. Like I said, we don't have to spend too much time doing meditation practice if we do it effectively. What's your experience from just doing this brief meditation session today?
My knee and my ankles temporarily until I started thinking again. And the waters, the eyes started to feel something else besides the practice.
Oh, whatever thoughts might come to your mind at a certain point in time after you had the point of no thought. You probably start getting some thoughts eventually. If you didn't, that's perfectly fine too. But if you did, that's not a problem. We just simply remind ourselves that those thoughts are daydreams and basically become lucid within the dream, because instead of pushing them away or trying to run away from them, we accept that it's the daydream that's happening, and we learn how to become lucid within the dream, which is a lot easier to do because you're not asleep. How was your experience?
No, I just realized how subtle this really can get. So even just the preferences of where your mind will go, like, oh, I'm paying attention to this now. I'm like, well, it could have easily, my mind could have drifted over to paying attention to how the colors outside, and just seeing how lucid that can actually become as well. It's not so solidified and hardened in our reality.
Mm-hmm. And many people don't start paying attention to their bodies or to the colors outside that are happening more or less in the present moment. They often start daydreaming about something that either happened in the past or future. Sometimes they may think about what the other person is thinking, which obviously is another form of daydream. Or they may think about what's happening in the present moment, but somewhere else other than right here now. So in other words, there are many ways to daydream. Even thinking on a macroscopic scale, for example, what's going on with the whole world, or what's going on in some minute, tiny little speck of dust. all of these essentially are examples of daydreaming. And when we do that, we catch ourselves that we're dreaming, remind ourselves that it's a dream, and thereby become lucid in it. Even when we catch ourselves observing something that seems to be happening in the present moment, for example, oh, something is going on with my back, or something is going on with my breath, or whatever. Again, it takes a little bit of time to recognize the experience. However short the time is, it actually makes the experience in the past. So often we are kind of slightly delayed with our recognition or thought about the event. That makes it another form of daydream because it's simply happening in the past, although a relatively recent past. How was your experience?
I feel good, I feel relaxed. I don't feel any pain. I don't feel any pain. And I also noticed, like after I yawn and then quiet, and then there's some thought, very subtle. But then I remember, I label it as a dream. I'm dreaming. So each thought is a dream. So it's pretty cool. Like I feel calm and I can see I'm observing even my thoughts. So that's really cool. I feel just relaxed, very relaxed.
So, what makes us particularly relaxed is also ability to exercise freedom of choice as to what kind of thoughts to focus attention on. Because whenever we have any type of a daydream or a thought in our minds, it's made of energy. What else could it be made of, right? Energy of consciousness. We may have some vivid images that pop in our mind's eye, or we may even have some voices speaking to us as if we're having a conversation with someone, or we may have some other experience kind of materialize or manifest in our consciousness. But obviously it's a dream and it's made of energy of consciousness. That also allows us to exercise discernment by recognizing that some energies we resonate better with than others within the dream. So if we focus on things in our daydreams that we don't resonate with, obviously we're not going to be particularly relaxed, because tension is actually a sign of focusing on something you don't resonate with. It's almost guaranteed, because your central nervous system becomes more agitated, and it will send signals of contraction to muscles. So how do we relax? We make central nervous system less agitated. How do we achieve that? By focusing on things we resonate better with. So for example, if you have a choice to think about somebody who you love and appreciate and resonate with a great deal, or somebody who you don't. And it's not black and white, it's all degrees of resonance. So you can assess, I resonate with this person maybe at 55% and that person at 72%. It's not going to be perfect. It's hard to find people we resonate with at 100%. And most people who don't resonate with, we still don't have it at 0. It's somewhere in between, probably a bell curve. But we can assess and then choose to focus our attention on the thought pattern or the thought form that we resonate more with. When we do that, we experience more flow. We experience greater degree of relaxation. So the flow happens in our minds and then manifests somatically in our physical bodies. It's one of the really important ways to keep in mind that most people who experience tension in their bodies are doing this themselves. It's not something that's been done to them. How do they do this? Well, they do this by essentially not being in the flow. As a matter of fact, most people have unconscious strategies for not being in the flow or for struggling against the flow. They don't understand that they have these strategies. These are completely unconscious. But that's what leads to tension. And different strategies actually manifest as different holding patterns of tension. We'll be exploring those tomorrow. if you guys have any questions about what we've done today so far, feel free to ask me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Maybe we'll cover it later, but just thinking, kind of at the close of the last one before our last break, but then also now about the hips. With the side-to-side one,
Yeah.
that's the holding out, definitely feel it. And I'm wondering with the hips going back and forth, there seems like there's holding patterns with that too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I wrote about those in my book. Let me demonstrate. If my hips are tilted anterior, which means the top of the hip bone is forward, it will increase my lumbar curve. When the lumbar curve increases, there is a particular designation, medical designation or symptom that is being called
Lordosis.
lordosis. Thank you very much. Being like a lord. Lords are by and large pretty proud folk. They are high on the social strata or social chain, social ladder. Now, when you are pretty high up, you kind of look down on everyone. When you look down on everyone, it doesn't mean that you're taller than everyone. You just simply tilt your head and you look down on people of the same height or even taller. What kind of holding pattern is this? Holding up. Thank you very much. It's a holding up pattern of tension. It's associated with also locked knees and shoulders being pulled down. So basically the whole thing is like, I'm really cool, I'm really self-important, or maybe a little bit arrogant. Now when a person experiences this holding pattern, obviously is associated with not only the attitude, but the whole unconscious strategy for struggling against the flow, as I mentioned a minute ago. Now, the alternative is the posterior tilt of the pelvis. When you reduce the lumbar curve, rather than making it more pronounced, it becomes less pronounced. What do you call this? Kyphosis. Kyphosis is exactly the misalignment of the spine when the lumbar curve is decreased. It's also associated with slouched shoulders and hanging the head relatively low. What kind of holding pattern is this? Holding down. Yes. So, holding down is not associated with being proud of yourself or self-important. Usually it's the opposite of that. Having relatively low self-esteem or feeling kind of sad, maybe even depressed. As a matter of fact, it's really hard to find a person who's depressed and not holding down. Sometimes they try to resist that holding down pattern, or maybe they're actually on manic depressive. So they switch from manic state, which is associated often with holding up, to depressive, which is associated with holding down. It's called bipolar. In other words, we don't always get stuck in one holding pattern all the time. Sometimes we flip-flop, either go into up and down, or maybe sometimes back and forth. Have you heard of love-hate relationships? Somebody may be really loving and exuberant and wants to be with you, or projects energy towards you, gives you attention, and then something flips, this switch flips, and they start judging you or withdrawing, stonewalling.
Padma energy. Got called that.
Say again?
Padma energy.
Ah, interesting. So basically it's the transition from holding forth to holding back. This kind of love-hate relationships are also pretty popular among people. So what we realize is that there are some primary patterns and some holding patterns. There are some secondary holding patterns. Sometimes even tertiary holding patterns. often holding out can be mixed with either one of those what I just described. So the person may be holding up, but also out, or holding down, but also out, or holding forth, but also out, or holding back, but also out. It's possible that they hold in. For example, holding forth in the same time. So it's kind of aggressive, but at the same time, passive aggressive. Or we're kind of afraid of expressing aggression. So basically, there are all kinds of interesting manifestations of different unconscious strategies for holding tension, for struggling against the flow of tension. But yeah, these are obviously associated with very specific patterns in terms of tilt of the pelvis and lumbar curve. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Cool. Any other questions, guys? Well, then let's break for lunch.